Hello, I am Debbie McKeever, founder and owner of Strong and Healthy Temple. Welcome to my YouTube channel and welcome back to my series on mastering your mind during the wilderness experience. This is part 5 and I will be talking about Joseph, the son of Jacob. And what Joseph represents for us is that part of ourselves that is now fully developed. We're fully developed in our minds and in our thinking and in our faith. We're not perfect. We still have some weaknesses, but we are more fully developed in that area. And if you know about Joseph, you will know that Joseph was a dreamer and that God would give him visions in his dreams and that he was eager to share those visions, with his family. And that's how we are. That's that part of us that's weak, where when we have dreams and goals and aspirations, we're always eager to share those dreams with our family, friends, and with our network. And we don't really know how to move in silence because we think that everybody is going to be happy for us, and not necessarily everyone is going to be happy. And Joseph's brothers, the ones that Jacob had with Leah, they were actually very jealous of him because they considered him to be Jacob's favorite child. Jacob had he and his younger brother Benjamin from Rachel, whom he was very much in love with, and he had them in his older age, and so he tended to favor them more. So they were very jealous of him, and they got to the point that they were so jealous that they were plotting against him, even to take his life physically. And his brothers represent those people in our lives that are jealous and envious and that are dream killers and dream slayers. And sometimes it'll be the least person that we expect. I remember when my mom and I we would go to Chicago for Bill Winston's faith conferences, and I had met a gentleman there who had it revealed to him that the person in his life who had been praying against him was his own mother. And when he confronted her, she admitted that it was true and that she was jealous of him and his success, even though he had treated her like a queen. It just bugged her that she had not aspired to that level of success in her own life, particularly at his age. So it's just really weird, but sometimes you'll be surprised at who will be against you. And I also think about the R&B singer Christopher Williams. He talked about his relationship with Stacey Dash, how they would go, in and out of relationships. And at that time, he had thought that, we're just going through ups and downs and, that's normal or whatever. But as he matured, it finally was revealed to him that this woman who was once deeply in love with him now hated him. And she wasn't getting back into the relationships with him because she wanted to be with him. She just didn't want him to be happy and to move on. So secretly she was, plotting to destroy him. And so that's why we have to get to that point in our lives that we're so developed in our thinking that we're not even surprised at, who could possibly be against us. And so that's that part of Joseph that was still weak. He had been sharing his dreams with his brothers. He had a dream where these, where essentially the interpretation was is that they were bowing down to him and they weren't having it. So, they were going to kill him. And so Reuben, his oldest brother, had decided, okay, it's not really worth, physically killing him. So, we'll just do something else. They ended up, putting him in a pit. I think it was like a dried up well. And Judah came up with the idea to sell him into slavery. And so they had sold him to a band of Ishmaelites that had come by. And the Ishmaelites ended up selling him to the Egyptians. And so he had come into Potiphar's house, and Potiphar recognized the anointing that was on Joseph the same way that Laban recognized it on Jacob. But Potiphar was not a trickster. He actually ended up promoting Joseph to the head of his house. And that's what will happen a lot of times if we just, stand steadfast and stay in a good attitude despite what people do, to come against us. These people that are praying against us and are not happy for us, the haters or whatever they are. If we just stay in a good attitude and just focus on what we're believing for, we'll still get promoted despite their hate. And so he had gotten promoted to the head of Potiphar's house. Well, along comes Potiphar's wife, and she liked what she saw. The brother must have been fine, because she wanted him, and she wanted to sleep with him, and she was doing everything in her power to sleep with him. And that's what happens in our lives. Not necessarily, a physical interaction, but we have these seducers in our lives that try to seduce us out of our positions one way or another. They don't want us to be in that position. These people that don't want you to do good, or they don't care if you do good as long as you don't do better than them. And so if they feel like you're doing better than them, then they're seeking to seduce you out of your position. And so when he refused to succumb to her, long story short, his servants had come in, and at one of the times that she was trying to seduce him, and she ended up like snatching his clothes off of him, and she still was holding part of his clothes in her hands. And so of course she lied and said that he had tried to rape her. So that's what happens when these haters and dream slayers can't get other people to come against you. They start slandering you, slandering your name, to bring you down. And so of course Potiphar and the servants believed her, and he was pissed, and he ended up not only demoting Joseph, but he ended up getting cast into prison. And so despite all of this, Joseph still kept a good attitude. And because of his good attitude and because of that anointing that was on his life, the jailer ended up promoting him also. And so that's representative of is that even in our lowest positions, even if we hit rock bottom, God can still promote us at rock bottom. He can take us from the bottom to the top in an instant. And so, Joseph had gotten promoted over the jailers, and he was able to interpret dreams. So he had interpreted dreams for some of the guys that were in jail, and one of the people was the cupbearer. And the interpretation that he gave him about being restored to his position with the Pharaoh, came to pass. And he said, hey, when you get out and you're fully restored to your position, don't forget about me. So he said, oh, hey, I won't forget about you. But what happened is, of course, he did forget about him, and that's what happens in our lives. A lot of times we're good to people, and then they forget about us. They forget how good we've been, and they don't return it. Not that we do things with a motive, because we don't do in order to get, never do anything with a motive. But like anyone else, when you sow a seed, obviously you want to reap a harvest, especially when you sow a good seed. You want to reap the good harvest from that. And so he was expecting to reap his harvest. But the cupbearer, of course, unintentionally just forgot all about him. It wasn't intentional. And 2 years had gone by, and Pharaoh had a dream. And so then the cupbearer came back to his remembrance, because nobody else could interpret these dreams for Pharaoh that were troubling him. And so he was like, oh man, there was this dude in prison, and this dude could interpret dreams, and he was 100% accurate. And so Pharaoh called for Joseph to come, and after Joseph interpreted the dream, he had, I think he awarded him with all these different things, and also he promoted him to second in command. So he was over all of Egypt. The only person that was higher up than him was the Pharaoh himself. So there we go. When we stand steadfast and we keep an attitude, even in the pit, he had a good attitude. So even when we're in the pit, we still have to have a good attitude, and we will be promoted. All of a sudden, here he is, ruler of the land, other than Pharaoh, because Pharaoh had delegated pretty much all the responsibility to Joseph. And so Joseph was now in this high position, and there was a famine in the land, and because of his his wiseness, he had stored up a lot of grain for the time of the famine. It was part of the dream that he interpreted, and all the people, when the famine came in the land of Canaan and in the land of Egypt, people were able to be fed. And so Jacob had sent his sons down to Egypt to get some food. And of course, then his brothers, they didn't recognize him, at first, but once they realized, but he recognized them. And once they realized that it was their brother, Joseph, who was this person who was, in charge of Egypt, they became afraid, because, they had sought to kill him, and they were the ones that had sold him into slavery and separated him from his, from his father and his younger brother, and had faked his death. They had put some blood on this coat of many colors that Jacob had made for him when they put him in the pit and sold him into slavery, and pretended like he was dead. And so they thought that, he was going to try to get revenge, but he didn't. When he finally came into contact with them, and long story short, he had them to bring his brother Benjamin back, they all started falling down and crying, and he was hugging them, and he let them know that he wasn't mad with them, because he said, what you meant for my harm, God meant it for my good. And it's the same thing in our lives. What other people mean for our harm, God will take it and turn it around and use it for our good, and promote us to the highest position that's so high that those same people that treated you ugly will have to come to you for your help. They'll have to serve you in some capacity, or they're going to need you, before you need them. And so that's what God is capable of. So just maintain an attitude of faith and an attitude of gratitude and a good attitude, and don't be resentful against people. Don't seek to get revenge, because if you do that, God will surely promote you. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. I would love for you to subscribe to my YouTube channel, share the videos with your friends, family, and network. Really hope that you are enjoying this series, trying to speed it along and not make the videos too long. But if you like it, again, please give it a thumbs up. Thank you so much for watching, and have it a great day.